going to invite people who have something to say to go up to a microphone and say it, but you don't have to report for your group. Okay, so it's just questions you're asking yourself, and it might be that it's not the same question as you were asking yourself 15 minutes ago. So this is not like the House of Commons, no disrespect intended, where you have decided what you think and what you're going to say, or what your official position is before you get up to speak. We're trying to practice a different type of conversation. It's not a debate, it's a dialogue. I know it's a bit odd, but this is how we break the pattern of downloading, where everybody just gives their speech and nothing new gets created. So it's the simple trick of don't decide whether you have anything to say until the person is finished, and hey, maybe there'll even be a silence and wouldn't kill us. Please, go ahead.
Okay, now I'm thinking I should just start with silence, so. But if I was to say something, I think we have a great wealth of thematic and specialist expertise in this room, people who've worked on various issues, international, domestic, in the public service, outside the public service, and I think we have to maximize and tap into that expertise. I think it'll make our ultimate products stronger. But by the same token, I think people are also good analysts generally, and we also want to bring fresh perspectives to bear. So I think striking that balance in our groups will be a real challenge.
So the question you're asking yourself is?
So the question I'm asking myself is, how do we strike that balance between expertise and fresh perspective?
Morning, everyone. Interesting question. In fact, we had an interesting discussion at our table. On a personal note, I woke up this morning and I asked myself the same question. Personally, do I find that I'm best positioned to move in an area and join a group where I can contribute and know that my expertise will be needed? Or do I branch out and do something entirely different, where I have no expertise but a genuine interest?
My question is actually really simple. How do we avoid empty words? How do we avoid the rhetoric of innovation, collaboration? And how do we actually take steps to achieve what we're trying to achieve?
My question is whether we will develop in our respective groups ideas or projects or themes that have a long impact, a major impact, but will realistically take decades to develop, or focus on something more realistic and say at the end of the 1 year, here's something tangible that we can accomplish, and finding that balance between the two.
My question is whether or not social issues will get enough traction in this process, because they're a constant dull ache as opposed to the sort of acute pain that we notice with environment or with global security.
Hi. After listening to my group members, I kind of came up with 6 general ideas. We had questions around team development, our roles. We had questions around topic ideas.
Sorry, the question, not for your group, but the questions you're asking yourself.
Oh, myself?
Yeah.
I think for myself, what impact and outcome are we really looking to achieve? I think that's going to have an impact on the questions that we develop, the concepts that we deconstruct, the assumptions that we come into. It's also going to have an impact on the design of the project, how we're going to implement our implementation strategies, and if this project's really going to have any benefit to Canadians.
Yeah, please. Sorry.
Say something here. Thank you. I also had a question that just came up spontaneously as I was listening to the others. But how do we keep hope? I mean, how do we keep passionate and hopeful about trying to find solutions to some of these problems that are extremely difficult, and also, if taken to their worst conclusions, are potentially disastrous for the planet? So how do we keep every day waking up, bringing passion, and trying to do what we can, even though things are quite difficult? Thank you.
Why are we so focused on results and products and how much value does the process itself hold for everyone?
My question is, are we going to become cynical, or are we going to be ambitious and optimistic?
How do we tap into other kind of intelligence? As civil servants, we have been through a process and we all have an analytical kind of intelligence, but should we tap into other kind of intelligence? How should we do that? And why do we assume we're going to have a report at the end? I mean, the kind of report the French France 2025 did, like, you know, with all the statistics and 350 pages, and boom, that's our report. Why do we assume that?
Okay, my question is on direction. I think a lot of people are wondering about direction. And my personal question is, are we going to be given direction, or as a group, are we going to frame our own questions and go in sort of more of an open space style where we get to decide as a group and self-select on how we're going to be moving into these questions and how to frame the questions, which is probably the most important fact. And then if that's the case, are we going to be given a block of time as a group to do that together? Because I think being together, we can actually feed off of each other and frame our own questions.
My second question is, why are we so anxious about this?
That appeals to me. Can we let go of the angst enough to relax and breathe and stop the reel going through all of our individual heads to allow it to be organic? And I'm not an organic person. I'll be honest about that. But to let it grow without forcing it, because it's, you know, if you go through the readings, this isn't the type of activity that should be forced. And yet as a government and as public servants, we're used to having to force things or having things forced on us. So my question is, can we let go enough to let it grow?
Throughout this process, how are we going to keep everything that we produce real, grounded? What's our reference point? How do we ensure that we don't take off to an altitude that's too high? How do we keep close to the ground? So what do we come back to check that we're moving in the right direction?
Okay, and the last question, yeah?
Why do I feel the need to be in control all the time? And why do I feel so competitive all the time? And does competition really breed quality, or does it breed anxiety?
Okay. So thank you. I just make one comment from my side is I just noticed this this subtle difference between questions that relate to I wonder what they're going to let me do or they're going to tell me to do, and questions relating to I wonder how I can be in this process in a way that will make a difference. And it's I don't know the answer. I don't know the best way to be in this process to make a difference. What's the balance between being anxious or being organic? What's the balance between being hopeful and allowing despair? I don't know, but what I do know is that the key to this kind of emergent process, I don't know how best to say it, but it's all about where you yourself are coming from. It's not about what they're going to tell me to do or what they're going to let me do. So you, as a leader, as a learner and as a leader, by definition, you have only one instrument, which is yourself. And so this capacity to be aware of where you are and this capacity to be, to notice what's going on within yourself, I think will serve you well.